Hello everyone, this is Diane. As you may know, I've been working on 6 Shabby journals. They are one signature journals, and they have a lot going on in them. There's a lot of detail, a lot of shabby, lovely elements. So it's taking me a long time to finish up the details. So I decided to release 3, and then when I have these done, I will release those 3 in a separate video. So for now, I didn't realize that I sewed 3 of them together last night and then finished up the details on them, like decorating the covers. And I didn't even realize that the 3 that I sewed together are the 3 that had the pink on the cover. So this is the pink release. And I did put a word inside the labels on each one so that we can name the journals. They will have separate listings, but this one is called Precious, and it has one of the ornate book plates. This isn't actually a Tim Holtz, but it's very, very similar. And it's got a little piece of vintage crochet underneath. These are all tied with this pretty pink seam binding. And the covers are made with a heavy cardstock from Blue Fern Studio from their Tattered Walls paper pad. And this one has writing and looks like cracked paint and some pink roses. So it looks pretty shabby. And inside, I forgot how many pages there are, so we'll figure that out. Inside each of the journals there is a book plate. This looks like it came off a perforated sheet. It is vintage. And it has a little collage of lace and sari silk and a Tree of Life wax seal, where I attached this with brads. I covered the brads with this piece of ephemera. All of the journals have the same pages and the same sorts of decorations. Images and colors and fabrics and things will vary. So this is a vintage billhead paper. It's not extremely old. I don't know how old it is. I got a pile of these tablets at a flea market. And I just added a little piece of eyelet and a bow with a green fiber. This is a letter written in Dutch, and it was printed on this airmail envelope that you would write the letter and then fold it up and send it off. So it's got the address and the stamp, which was printed right on there. And these are from the, I think they're from the 50s, early 50s. And I added this little element that I made with handmade paper and my Big Shot with a impresslit die. This is a vintage record book, so it's got lines you can write on, and it's got the number printed on, and a piece of lace. In addition to the Tattered Walls cardstock that I used on the front cover, that's the only piece of this paper that's in here because it's really too thick to use for pages. But I had some wallpaper printables that I already had printed. Most of them are from tailor-made journals. A few are my own, and I think there were some other decorative papers that weren't necessarily wallpaper. But I pulled from the papers that I already had printed that would go with these books. So there's a pretty one with yellow and pink roses. This is a vintage envelope that was cut here, and it had this writing on it. Lawrence's letter written to Cliff, I think that's Cliff, at New Jersey. There's a little piece of lace I added. It had these little pieces of cellophane tape that were still attached. And I left the letter. I left it where the opening is here. Yeah, it says Dear Cliff. And I left the letter in there. And it's dated November 18th, but it does not have the date. I did not read the letter, so I don't know what the letter contains. But there are, well, it's one large page folded in half. So it's a pretty long letter. I hope you read it. And I glued this on as a tuck spot so I could tuck in this little tag that I made out of cardstock and a piece of fabric that I glued on, and added a little piece of cardstock and an eyelet. This is something that I printed on the backs. So on the backs of the wallpaper digitals, I either printed a light wallpaper that you could write on, or this is also from Tailor Made Journal. No, this is from, yeah, it's Tailor Made Journals, and it's French roast coffee dye printable paper, and they have these really pretty designs, and that leaves you some space for writing. This is vintage music, and I added some pink lace just for decoration. It's not a pocket or anything, and a fussy cut. Folded the lace up around here. This is just a scrap paper that I made a pocket out of. I pulled quite a few ephemera pieces from my stash, in addition to making quite a few ephemera pieces to put into these journals. So there is lots of handmade ephemera in these journals, and little digitals that I pulled from my already printed stash. This is just an embroidered piece of linen that you can flip up and write under. You can write all around this page. This is one of my wallpapers. I don't think I have mine in my shop anymore. I took some out. I think I took all of them out. I just let them expire because they weren't selling very well anyway. But I still have them, so I can use them. This is a piece of fabric from an old sheet, and it wraps around. It's a pocket here, and I wrapped it around, and I could tuck that little tag in there. Here is one of Amity Bloom's wallpaper tags, and this is one of my tabs that I stamped it, and then punched out of file folder scrap. I have these stamps. There's a set of 4 stamps that are made to go with that Stampin' Up! Punch. I just did a little collage there. There's a book page. The book is called Today Is Yours. I thought that was a really great, like a little title element there, and I just added that little digital that you can write on. This is a piece of onion skin, I believe, and it came off of a document that was it was a list of their belongings, and I believe it was for like their will. I think the person was deceased. I didn't read the whole thing, but I included a page from that document in every journal. They're not all onion skin. This is a page from that ledger book, or record book. I just folded it so that this end was shorter, just to give a little flappy piece. You can glue something on there if you want to, something you want to keep. Here's another piece of my wallpaper, and with this I created a tab with eyelet and a little piece of embroidered ribbon, and sewed a button on there, vintage button. Isn't that button cute? And I printed this on the back. You can write on that. That's Tailor Made Journals. This is a piece of handmade paper, and I used a bunch of ephemera from Eclectic Eggplant, which I forgot what it's called, the set of digital is called, but it's distressed ephemera. It's very, very cute the way it's done with the, I don't know if cute's the right word, but it looks distressed, and I love it. I thought it was great for these shabby journals. And I added a little chiffon ruffle there, and this is just a digital that I had already printed in my stash. A piece of ledger and just a strip of vintage fabric. Here is a bit of, this is not hand crochet, but it was a machine crochet piece. It was a long piece, and I just cut pieces off to put in each journal. Some decorative paper, digital. A piece of eyelet lace as a pocket, and one of my homemade pieces that was in my stash. I made this recently though. Here's one of the digital wallpapers that I printed on the back to be written on. I folded the edge of this over there. And here we have a photograph, a vintage photo. This was a copy. I don't know if I got this in a box of old stuff or if somebody sent it to me. I had several that were old photos that were printed on glossy photo paper. And I may have gotten them in a box at a flea market, but then again, someone may have sent them to me. I don't remember. But I just backed it onto cardstock, added some more of that embroidered ribbon, and this is a tag that I covered with vintage wallpaper. Some more fabric here. Here's the other side of that handmade paper, and we have a heart that I made with my embosslets with the handmade paper. This is a little piece from a vintage book about furniture, and I just tore a piece out with the picture of a very beautiful secretary and a little fabric collage that I did, and this was just something in my stash made with a scrap of scrapbook paper and coffee dyed paper. It's another digital with a sheer embroidered ribbon as a pocket, just a little fabric tab and some lace. And here is a tag that I made out of a scrap of scrapbook paper. This was one of my scrapistry projects, using up scraps, and I embossed it and put some coffee dyed paper on the back, which was also a scrap, and this little piece of ledger was also a scrap. There's lots of scrappiness in these journals, and even the full pages and things that I used, and digital cards and things, they were all printed already, except for adding printing to the back of them. So I'm using some of my stash. There's another fabric cluster there, and I just used this tiny little Tim Holtz paper clip to add on this little digital card. Fabric pocket, and then this is one of my collaged tags that I did for this set of journals with a chenille tab. Again, the fabric pocket folds around. Here's another little scrap. I added some eyelet fabric at the top here, Tim Holtz butterfly, and in this little pocket is this journal card that I had made. This was in my stash. So you can just open it up, and right on the back it's got some straw paper hinging all those cards together. There is a piece of chiffon here and fabric. There's another one of those distressed ephemera pieces, and another tag with wallpaper. And here I just put on a piece of fabric lace fabric as a pocket, and this was a card that I had made recently in a, well, yeah, not too long ago. And that tucks right in there, and you can journal on the back. And on the back I used a scrap of this very paper and put it on as a pocket, and added another of my embossled pieces. And this is a tag that I made specifically for these journals with a vintage book, piece of fabric, and a doily and an old button. And then it ties with the seam binding. I didn't count the pages. I probably won't count the pages while we're doing the video, but I will put that in the listing. So this one is Precious. This one is called Story. This one has a white frame that I've had in my stash for a long time, and I used a piece of embossed paper and ran a little ink over it, and this is a little printable word, and I just added a scrap of crochet that I had. Again, this one has pink roses, and it has a white one, and it looks like it's water stained here, and some more printing. I just love the distressed look of this paper. And here is the book plate. This one is a printable, and our wax seal. I did these book plates in wax seal collage pieces on a video. At least some of them. I don't remember if I finished them all on the video. So we can go through this a little more quickly because you already know what all the elements are. Here we have another vintage envelope, and I'm not sure of the date. It has a bunch of numbers here, and I don't know what those numbers mean. 14, 32, 20, 21. I don't even know if that is anything to do with the date. But again, there's a letter inside this one. It's written in German. This one says 31/3/32. So I'm thinking it's March 31st, 1932. So I guess those don't have anything to do with a date. So I think that says, Dear Miss, whatever that name is. And that's all I would know of this German letter. You just have to be careful putting it back in there. The back of the envelope is down lower than the front. And I don't want to tear the envelope. And I don't think you'd be pulling it out that often, but if you read German, you might want to pull it out and read it. And this gets tucked in behind the entire envelope. These little tags I made out of just pattern cardstock scraps and little scraps of cardstock that I had punched out with my paper punches. I'm just going to glue this little petal down so it doesn't get torn off. I just put little pieces in these pockets because a tall piece would just tip. Doesn't have enough height on the pocket to hold it steady. There's another little piece of embroidery. This is machine embroidery though, but it's pretty. I just had this little piece left over from something. This pocket is made from an embroidered chair cover. I got a set of 4 of them, I think, at a flea market, and I don't think they were ever put on a chair, and they were very nicely embroidered. I just added a little scrap of fabric there. And this is a tag that I made not too long ago. I was trying to think if it was, I think it was before Christmas. It's got a very, very old piece of ledger on the back. There's another rice paper page from that document. Look at this button. This looks like homemade paper, but it was actually a flyleaf from a book. But I love the pink color, and I liked the texture. It's got little pieces of fiber in there, so I think it was homemade, handmade paper, but, you know, manufactured, if that makes sense. A ledger and a fabric strip. Another Amity Bloom tag. This is one of my wallpapers. I love that piece. I don't know if I have any of it left, actually, but this is just a digital. This is a piece of wallpaper and another one of those glossy photo reprints. I put a paper clip on just on the edge of this because this one keeps wanting to tip. It's just a collaged card. All scraps. This piece right here was cut from an old greeting card. I had used the image on the card for something, but there were some flowers scattered on there that I saved. It's so pretty. This little cluster has a bulb pin with a button on it. And here's the embossed tag in this book. I used the same embossing folder for all of the tags, one for each book. This one doesn't have straw paper. It has embossed glassine, or not embossed, coffee dye glassine. So I was using scraps for the hinges. This one has some tulle ruffle. And this one is a piece of my wallpaper. This is the actual wallpaper. You have a digital of this as a page in here. Some coffee dyed eyelet. And this is a digital folder that you can write on. This is a vintage sheet. This one is called Story. And the last one for today is called Forever. I love this frame. Looks like it should be in snow white. And this little piece of a doily, I guess. I don't know. It's just this little piece, and there was a hole in the center. So it must have been framing something at some point, or it was meant to. I love these papers. I keep saying that, I know, but I just love that tattered, shattered look. I don't think this one was sealed. This was in a scrapbook of someone who collected, oh actually it's open on the side, but there's nothing in it. It was in the scrapbook of a person who I think sent away for envelopes to be sent to her from all over the world. This one is actually from the Waldorf Astoria, New York, and she would just put them in her scrapbook and write notes about them. And this one, this was part of the scrapbook page, and it said, contained letter from orchestra leader Xavier Cugat's secretary. This is a digital cigarette card, and these are in my shop. Tuck one of these in here. This is, again, machine embroidery on this piece. This was a scrap that I had. There's a little bit of embroidery here. This is a scrap from a vintage doll dress. There's a little casing here, or a hem. Here's another part of the document that is not the rice paper. From Waterloo, New York, probably. Yeah, Waterloo, New York, 1914. There's a crystal-y button. Seems dark in here. Sometimes it looks dark through on my screen, on my camera, but it doesn't appear dark when I view the video. So hopefully that is the case this time. I did so many of these, making 6 of them, for one thing because I often do 2 journals at a time with 3 signatures each. And I thought these were only 1 signature journals, so I'd still be just doing 6 signatures, but there's so much more detail in each of these journals. But also I wanted to use up more of this paper, and I only use 1 for each journal. This is a wallpaper. And this is, I think this is one of my photos that I own, and I printed it onto parchment paper. There's a little bit of embroidered ribbon there. I like this fabric that I put on this tag. A burgundy toile fabric. This has some reddish tones here, so that's why there's deeper reds instead of all the pinks that are in that one. Maybe I should put a burgundy or red seam binding on this. I think I will. I'm going to change this out for something deeper. Here's another bulb pin with a button. That's a digital tag. And this is a little booklet. This was a booklet card that I had. I don't know if I still have it, but I made a digital out of it and made a little booklet for you. That was in my stash. This is a piece of wallpaper on this tag. And I like this sheer lace. And in there is another of those distressed ephemera pieces. So's this. You'll see, we've gone by a lot of these distressed ephemera from Eclectic Eggplant that I haven't pointed out. I think each of the books has at least 3 of these handmade paper embosslet pieces. So we have 3 books in the shop right now. Precious, Story, and Forever. I hope you like these. I have 3 more to come, and I'll be working on them today. So I don't know if I'll have them in tomorrow or not, but I do have these today. So thanks for watching. I hope you'll head on over to the shop and put one in your cart. And I will see you in the next video. Have a creative day today. Bye-bye.